We are going to try to not, I repeat, not overreact to the Sixers, the loss to the Dallas Mavericks last night. We're going to try. I know you all want to. I'm going to read some of your comments from Twitter. We're going to try not to overreact to it. We're just trying to be realistic about this Sixers team. Eagles, Howie Roseman put out a tweet yesterday. I did about some of the tough decisions. We're going to start talking the road to free agency, which begins soon as well. Trending in the AM starts in 30 seconds.
Holding gets around in front. Embiid,
and Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. Turn those notifications on so you don't miss a minute of when we go live here on the channel. Drop your comments, questions, thoughts, concerns, anything. We're talking Sixers and Eagles today. Not even worried about that Phillies blowout yesterday. I don't care. No, not worried about that. We're going to try our best to have a logical conversation, about this Philadelphia 76ers team, about what we saw last night, but really the big picture, the growing issues that have been with this team. Because as I put in my examples here of comments at how to comment on this show, the Sixers are who they are. I'm sure, Drew, you got a lot to say about this team. We all do. And I understand the frustrations. I really understand the frustrations of this team and why the fan base is so up in arms about the Sixers team. I really do. Stay tuned. If you want Eagles talk, we are going to spend some time talking Eagles. I had an interesting thought last night about the Eagles and Howie Roseman and free agency in the draft and how it's coming up. We are going to talk that the second half of the show. But I want to start with the Sixers, obviously. It's spring training, Freddie. Counts for nothing. Spring training. I love it. I get excited for spring training, Freddie. I actually really do. It's a really damn shame I'm not going down this year. I love Clearwater, and I love going down to catch a game. It's not happening this year, but and after game, I actually did want to talk and be sarcastic about the Phillies blowout yesterday. I think they lost like 15-3. I did, but then you watch that Sixers game last night, and it's hard. It's hard to even not talk about the Sixers. What's up, my man Jason? Hope you're feeling better this morning. I got actually a question for everybody. I mean, I know I'm a diehard Sixers fan. I am going to be watching every game. But I saw my man Jason Ashworth tweet out last night, a tweet that got me thinking. It's like, are you even watching every Sixers game? As a Sixers fan, as a diehard, I have to come on here every morning and talk about it. So I try to watch as much as possible every single game. But if I wasn't doing this morning show every day, would I be watching every single game? All 48 minutes? And he said, he put in his tweet, like, it's frustrating. It's hard to really commit. I mean, the NBA season, to be a fan of the NBA and to be a fan of a team in the NBA like the Sixers, it's an 82-game commitment plus the playoffs. Games are long, and it's frustrating. So are you even committed at this point to watching all the games, to watching each and every play? And I think it really clicked the switch that this team and this organization, this franchise, because it's not one player. And we're going to get into some comments made on Twitter that I want to address about this team. But this team has done, and I've talked about this before, done everything in their power to disconnect themselves from their fan base, to be not there's no emotional draw, because we could see this is not year 1 or 2 of this run. I mean, Doc Rivers has been around for how many years already? This organization, the Joel Embiid, Sixers, have been a thing for a long time now. This is not year 1. This is not year 2. This is not year 3. And the book, we've read the book, and it has the same ending every single time. So is Jason Ashworth's comments like, can you even watch every game at this point? Like, can you emotionally get yourself invested in this point in this team? I think is an extremely, extremely fair question, and one I'd like to know more about what people think. Because, I mean, you watched last night's game. Sixers drop one to the Dallas Mavericks, 133-126. Back-to-back games in Dallas against Luka and Kyrie. I mean, it was going to be a struggle. It was obviously going to be a struggle last night. I mean, that Luka-Kyrie pairing, it's only been together for a brief period of time. They're just starting to hit their stride together. When Kyrie Irving is not being a distraction, he might want to be one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He's just a head case and a nut job. I mean, it goes to show how many teams he's played on now in his NBA career and how many groupings he's had to go through and he's failed it. I mean, Kyrie is Kyrie. He's going to do Kyrie things, if you want to call it that. But right now it's the honeymoon phase in Dallas. And Luka, I said it yesterday when we did the show, that he's the only guy I would have no issue with winning MVP over Joel Embiid. Because Luka Doncic is one of the 3 or 4 best players in the NBA, and I truly believe that. And he's having an MVP caliber season. Before Kyrie got there, it's not like Dallas had this, megastar, 3 big star team down there. Yeah, they had Jalen Brunson for last year. But it's basically Luka and a bunch of not role players. There's players better than role players, but no stars. You're throwing Kyrie into the mix now. That's a big deal. So we knew last night's game was going to be tough. Back-to-back games on the road. Miami, Dallas, Joel banged up. Everybody banged up. We've got a tough stretch. Now we're down to 20 games left in the season. We've got more games. I mean, we're off today. We play tomorrow. Then we have a day off. And then we do another back-to-back. Basically playing 5 games in 7 days, all on the road. We knew last night was going to be a tough game. It was going to be a tough job to win. But they were getting absolutely smoked through the first 3 quarters. Then here comes typical Sixers. They throw the fishing line in the water. The first 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, they reel you back in. They have a really hot, opening part of the fourth quarter there. Cut the lead to 4. And then that was it. I mean, then Kyrie makes a big shot. Then Luka makes a fadeaway 3. Leads back out to 11. Game's over at that point. They tried to hang in there. The Sixers, it is what it is. But I really think there's something to it that you can't just emotionally get involved or emotionally get connected with this team. Because we could see it. If you're a logical, rational Sixers fan, you see that this team is a second-round exit team. They're no better than they were last year. They're not much worse than last year either. They are what they are. We have to hope that something happens to the Celtics or Bucks in the playoffs where they get knocked out early so we don't have to face them to have a chance at the conference finals. That's not what you want out of your team. You don't want to have to hope that somebody else loses before you to have a chance. That's the opposite of what you want to have confidence in your team. And why don't we have confidence in this team? You look at last night's game and tell me that this squad is a well-built squad. Finally put Tyrese Maxey back in the starting lineup, which I saw some people question, some beat reporters question it. Drew, you lost all faith. You're not the only one, and it's frustrating. And there's no way to really solve this issue at this point. Now, in the offseason, we could blow it up. Maybe they do. Maybe they tweak it and try to fix it again. We'll find out when we get to that point. But you look at last night's game, and you put Tyrese Maxey should never have been on the bench. I believe that. A lot of people see that now. But you use last night as the night to put him back in the starting lineup when you've got Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. The opposing backcourt. Is that the game to get him right? Now, all credit to Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey basically carried the Sixers team last night. He didn't outscore Joel Embiid, but I think he had a more positive effect and impact on the game last night. He had 29. Joel had 35. Tyrese Maxey was the only starter with a positive plus-minus last night. Dude, your starting lineup just got smoked by the Mavericks, starting lineup. I mean, Harden minus 21, Embiid minus 16, Harris minus 22, Tucker minus 30 in 24 minutes. It's, maybe Maxey shouldn't have been. Maybe you don't make that move. And what I'm trying to get at, it's the Doc Rivers philosophies and decision-making. You used last night when 6'2" Tyrese Maxey's got to guard Kyrie Irving. And there were 2 or 3 step-back threes I saw from Kyrie Irving last night that Maxey did his best, but Maxey's limited on defense. We know that. Not only because of his size, he's just a limited defensive player. You have Maxey because he's a spark. He's a spark plug on offense. He can get to the basket. He's got confidence in his shot. Never wanted to lack that confidence. And then you look at the bench and the rotation that he used last night. I mean, you haven't used Montrezl Harrell in God knows how long, even in mop-up duties. He's a DMP. Drew, you took off work just so I can – I love it. I love it. I love it. There's lots of venting to do. A lot of venting to do. But you last night, you see Paul Reed had a great game the other night, was playing decently last night in his brief spell. But then all of a sudden, you put Montrezl Harrell in. You sub out Reed, you put Harrell in. What's the point of that? Now, it did backfire totally, but that's just what's the question there? Shake Milton didn't see the court till the fourth quarter last night. He's been your backup guard, wasn't last night. Don't know why. George Niang, I brought up a joke last night on Twitter, and honestly, it got quite the reaction that people actually thought it was true. When George Niang is not hitting these shots, and he is stone cold right now, everybody says hit the side of a barn. Well, he's the minivan, so he couldn't hit the side of a minivan with a basketball right now. Somehow he was a plus 17. He was on the court during the comeback, but he really didn't do anything. He had a couple of rebounds. He had a turnover. Did not make a shot last night. But it's George Niang, and it's a joke. It's meant to be a joke. But also, it's like, well, Doc Rivers just randomly throws shit up against the wall to see if it sticks. Is George Niang any better than Furkan Korkmaz when he's not hitting shots? You keep trying these. I mean, Daniel House Jr. now has had 2 games where he's gotten in the rotation. Well, he had not even a full minute yesterday, but he did get on the court yesterday. I saw somebody saying yesterday on Twitter, and this is where I'm going at with this Twitter thing. Everybody's overreacting, that Daniel House Jr. needs to be back in the regular rotation. Why? But if you're going to put Daniel House back in the rotation, why can't Furkan get back on the court? At least he provides some energy and spark. The Turkish MJ. Somebody couldn't believe it. Never heard me call him that. That guy makes one shot and then thinks he's MJ, starts trying to dunk from the free throw line, hit fadeaway behind the basket threes. I mean, the guy has a swagger and a confidence. He might not be a great basketball player, but he has the confidence. And maybe that's what the team needs. Maybe it just needs somebody like Furkan to get 10 minutes just to provide a little spark, to his teammates. I don't know. But you look at the rotation and you literally ran a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12-man rotation last night. McDaniels had 13 minutes. Dude, I have never seen a man get 4 fouls in less than 1 minute. But Jalen McDaniels was able to do it last night. Come in and literally foul. 54 seconds, I think it was. 4 fouls. And Doc Rivers left them in there. I mean, that's kind of, something's off. Maybe let's pull him out of this game, whatever. That was during that comeback. Well, when we came back, that's kind of what stopped the comeback. Some of that. I mean, you just look at it and some of the lineups. I mean, he had Montrezl Harrell and George Niang and Josh McDaniels on the court at one point last night together. What did Doc Rivers think was going to happen? When you have a bunch of guys that have never played together and not even playing much basketball, period, all on the court at the same time. Yeah, it's going to help tie. I think Maxey and Harris were on the court with that combination. Yeah, it's going to give the ball to Maxey and Harris. The defense knows it's going to Maxey and Harris in that situation. Look, I'm not trying to make this about a bash Doc Rivers conversation. I know Doc Rivers has had probably his best year in Philly as a head coach. But the standards were pretty low on what Doc Rivers has done so far. I mean, it's not hard to have a better coaching season than the last 2 years because he set the bar pretty low. But is Doc Rivers still the one holding back? I was digging through old tweets last night of mine. I wanted to see some things. And I found something that I retweeted and shared out of, it was John Clark's poll he put out when we fired Brett Brown. And Doc Rivers wasn't even on this poll. This was September 16th, 2020. Sixers fans, who do you want as the next head coach of the Sixers? He put 3 names. The 3 leading names right away that in 2020 were Mike D'Antoni, Ty Lue, and Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan, man. I think we dodged the bullet with that one. We dodged it. So Billy Donovan won that vote with 53%. 25% said Mike D'Antoni. 22% said Ty Lue. There was over 6,000 votes on this poll. And I remember that. And I remember I was big. I wanted Ty Lue to be our head coach. I did. I was all in on Ty Lue. Because remember, at first, Doc Rivers wasn't an option. He wasn't available at first to be the head coach of this team. Because he was still with the Clippers. And then the Clippers made him available. They signed Ty Lue. And we bring in Doc Rivers. Now, Ty Lue hasn't done anything amazing with the Clippers. They haven't gotten to a finals or anything. They got Kawhi. They got Paul George. Kawhi's missed a lot of time. Paul George has missed time. At least it's not like, Joel missing 2 weeks here or 1 week there or being banged up in the playoffs. They've had guys miss significant time. And they still float at water. I think they've made the playoffs most years still, too. Joel Embiid ends up like AI. So I'm guessing you're meaning no title. Well, at least AI got to a finals, Drew. At this point, when's Joel even going to – Joel Embiid ain't getting to the finals this year, Drew. And unless drastic changes to this roster are made, he ain't getting to the finals next year either. So AI, he's not going to end up like AI because he's not even going to get to the finals at this pace. It's going to take drastic changes. But it made me think that poll question, guys, that would this team be any better if it wasn't Doc Rivers, if it was Ty Lue? Everyone wanted Mike D'Antoni. I don't know why. I'm not a Mike D'Antoni fan. But Mike D'Antoni, Billy Donovan, Ty Lue, anybody else in 2020, Sam Cassell wasn't the hot coaching candidate that he is now, so you can't say Sam Cassell. Would we be any better? And if all things stay the same, Daryl Morey becomes the president, GM, whatever, the de facto GM, because technically Elton Brand, have we even heard Elton Brand's name in like 6 months? I don't know. He's just a coffee runner in the office. If Daryl Morey makes the exact same moves, but we have a different coach here, that's the problem. That the moves that have been made haven't set up Daryl Morey or Doc Rivers or this team for success. I cannot blame JoJo. I'm not trying to blame Joe, and I'm going to get into some comments people made. Man, people are ready to turn on Joel really quickly right now, Mark, on Twitter. They really are. Talking about not making the right moves. Yeah, I mean, we haven't made the right moves. And I said it the day Daryl Morey was brought here. He's a one-trick pony. Trade for James Harden and come up short. And that's it. That's all he's done. Also, Sixers need to stop allowing these leads and then having the Furious. Yeah, it's like they're just coasting and they flip the switch and they think they can just flip a switch and just win a game. Well, when you go up against good teams, you can't do that. It might work against Orlando or, San Antonio or something like that, but don't work against Dallas. Don't work against Miami. It don't work against the Bucks who we face on Saturday. So when I bring up that poll, it's like, even if we had a different head coach here, would things be? If you fired 2 months ago Doc Rivers like I was clamoring for and promoted Sam Cassell, maybe there would have been a little interim coach spark, kind of like Rob Thompson, but would it have translated to a long-term season success like Rob Thompson with the Phillies? I doubt it, because you still have a poorly built team. I said it when George Niang was brought here. I love George Niang. Everybody loves George Niang. I'm not bashing George Niang. But George Niang in his career was a 10 to 12 minute a game guy. I think he had one season before last year where he averaged over 14 minutes a game in a season. And he was brought here last year he was playing 25, 30 minutes. This year, last night he didn't play a lot of minutes, but I think Doc realized he's ice cold. But he still is one of the main part. He's one of the main guys that come off our bench. That's not who George Niang is. But he is here. Shake Milton, your backup guard. I love Shake Milton. But is he starting on an NBA team, a finals team? No. Paul Reed, not good enough. Daniel House, wasted roster spot. Dwayne Dedmon, wasted roster spot. Furkan Korkmaz, wasted roster spot. How many wasted roster spots do we have right now? Because of the poor decision making from Daryl Morey. Part of the problem is you got guys like Joe, Matisse. Yeah, but hold on a second. And I was going to get to this, but I'm just going to get to it right now. What's your other comment up here, Mark? We don't just, yes, we do besmirch him. I don't care. Joe, Matisse, Charles Bassey, these guys, yeah, they're contributing elsewhere. Isn't Bassey on the San Antonio Spurs? I think they got 12 wins on the season. Isaiah Joe and Matisse are on OKC and the Thunder. They might not even make the playoffs, those teams. There's a difference between being a contributor on a bad team and being a contributor on a title contending team or a team with title aspirations. The Sixers are the number 3 seed in the East. They have aspirations and hopes to climb the charts even higher, to get out of the second round. Joe ain't making the playoffs. Matisse might backdoor into the play-in series in the playoffs. Bassey, they're going to be the 3rd or 4th pick in the draft. So you can run these guys out there, let them develop, give them 30 minutes to see what they got. But it's not like they're turning those teams into winning teams. So I absolutely hate the argument of Joe, Matisse, and Bassey are developing. And first off, Matisse has played, 7 games in Portland? Yeah, it's nice to see that, that performance from him. Look, Doc can't develop. Tyrese Maxey's developed pretty damn well under Doc. And look, guys, I'm an anti-Doc guy. I don't like Doc Rivers. I want him out of here 2 years ago. Rivers has no patience with young players. Right, but what kind of patience can you have? Can you afford? Go look at Isaiah Joe's stats, Mark. Yeah, he's had some really good games. He's also had some god-awful games. You can afford to do that in OKC with no expectations. If Doc Rivers ran Isaiah Joe out there last night and Isaiah Joe went 1 for 7, people would be saying, what the hell was Doc Rivers doing? Run this kid that's not ready for the big moment out there. But because you see from a distance these stats on bad teams. Look, during the process, during the process, the 10 and 12 win seasons, guys averaged 20 points on the Sixers. It doesn't mean they were good basketball players. Okay basketball players, below, starters on contenders, basketball players, put up stats elsewhere. It does not mean they're good basketball players. It doesn't mean they're great basketball players, I should say. It just means players put up. It's not like a team like San Antonio is just going to score 20 points a game. They're going to put up 80, 90 points a game. Somebody's got to get the buckets. Charles Bassey just happens to be getting those buckets there. That's the problem, guys. You're not thinking of it like that. Like you see from a distance 1 or 2 box scores. It's box score hunting. These guys, yes, Doc Rivers isn't patient, doesn't give Paul Reed enough minutes. Well, Paul Reed, when he's out there, yeah, the last 2 games has looked well. But how many times we won it, Kevin Love, we didn't want Dwayne Dedmon, Nerlens Noel. We've been wanting in the buyout market another backup center during the trade deadline. We wanted them to go after Andre Drummond. Bring him back into Philly. Because we saw all these games of when he was getting 7 or 8 minutes, 9 minutes a game, that Paul Reed was stinking this year. And you're not going to get Paul Reed regularly more than 9 minutes because Joel Embiid's going to play 37, 38 minutes a game. What I test, putting up stats, Mitch, on bad teams does not mean it translates to good teams. And that's all it is. Look, would I love to have what they're doing over there here? Sure. But you can't just run these guys out here when you're trying to win a title. And look, Daryl Morey backfired with this team. Bringing in Daniel House. I said it the day they signed him. That was a wasted pick. I said that. Dwayne Dedmon. He's made so many mistakes building this roster. I get it. But if you take Daniel House off this team and you put Matisse back on this team, or if you take Furkan Korkmaz off this team and put Isaiah Joe on this team, there isn't going to be much of a difference in the results. Because first off, these guys, you still have Joel Embiid, James Harden, Tobias Harris, and whoever comes on this show and says Tobias Harris needs to get bumped down to like 10, 15 minutes a game, because someone said that on my Twitter page yesterday, I'm just going to, I'm open to everybody's opinions, but that's a joke. You're so top heavy with your stars. These guys aren't going to get 25. Isaiah Joe wouldn't get 25 minutes on this team. There's no reason to. It's not a hot take. It's just realistically speaking. What's scary too is that they have limited picks and draft. Dude, yeah. This is what you're going to be. This is spot on here, Mark. 100% spot on. It's going to take a really bad look. I want to see the Sixers. I'm positive. I still think they could get to the second round. We'll see how the matchups go, the injuries, who's healthy, who's not. I still think the Sixers can have a chance to get out of the second round. Depends on the matchup. It really does. It's slim, but there's a chance. But if they get knocked out in the first round, it almost might be the best thing for this team, because then you'd have to blow it up. You would have to completely, totally blow it up. Fire Doc. Maybe fire Daryl. Maybe you move on from James Harden. Maybe this offseason you can actually move on from Tobias Harris's contract because it's an expiring deal next year. I don't know. But maybe once you start moving on from some of these guys, you could start, dude, there's a chance, Mark, that if this blows up this offseason, we have to take 3 steps back next year before we can take a step forward. And then that you're talking about missing Joel's 29-year-old season, 30-year-old season, where you're just wasting them. No, I'm not saying trade Joel Embiid. I'm not. Don't worry. I did find a tweet last night. Hold on, what's it say? What can happen, though, is losing those big contracts with Harden and total reconfigure the roster. Absolutely. And that's what I kind of hinted at yesterday. Yeah, rebuild around Joel and Tyrese. Go get some elite wing scorers. Go look at Toronto. Toronto's, the 9th seat, the 10th seat, 11th seat, something like that in the conference right now. But they've had a lot of injuries, a lot of issues up there in Toronto. But, dude, they've got so many athletic wings on their roster. Now, they need some other things to go around with it. Maybe an elite point guard or something. But, man, what happened? The NBA is all about elite wing scorers and defenders. 6'8", 6'9" guys that can get their shot, that can get to the rim, that can play defense. Look at the Celtics with Tatum and Brown, the Bucks. Look at all these teams. Look at the guys that the Mavericks ran out there last night. Where are the Sixers' elite wings? Daniel House Jr. was the elite wing that we brought in this offseason. Dude, I would pine for a guy like Robert Covington back on this team. And I hate it. Well, I didn't hate him. It was time to move on from him. This is the problem with this team. It's the roster construction. Look, I'm anti-Doc Rivers, but I will give Doc Rivers one thing. And it's, he was given a shitty team. Last year's team, as bad as it was better than this year's team. Now, you could blame Doc Rivers for not finding more minutes for Matisse Thybulle. You could blame Doc Rivers for not magically seeing that Isaiah Joe on a bad team was going to put up minutes, or Charles Bassey might have been better than Paul Reed. But, man, last year everybody wanted Paul Reed out there every game. Didn't know why they were rotating every other game, Bassey and Reed. Everybody wanted Paul Reed out there. Well, you got your wish. And now Paul Reed, outside of the last 2 games, has been a net negative on this team. Dude, I actually considered saying that on a show back before the trade deadline because he's getting a lot of DMPs. And the homie, man, he's not that athletic wing I was just talking about, Mitch. But he was a guy that puts a little hustle, loyalty, respect out there, fires up his teammates, fires up the crowd. And I miss the homie. I won't lie. I do. Let's not go on the Paul Reed victory parade, Doc Rivers. Dude, no offense. Everybody knows my opinion on Doc Rivers. Everybody does. But this is an accurate statement from Doc Rivers. Paul Reed is a guy that if we just say, hypothetically speaking, we reverse the offseason decisions, that Bassey is still on this team and Paul Reed is over in San Antonio. Everybody's like, oh my God, we gave up on Paul Reed. Look at those numbers he's putting up in 25 minutes a game because he's playing on a 14-win team. And somebody's going to get the stats. And guess what? Charles Bassey would probably be playing 8 minutes a game, having minus 13s one night, minus 9, plus 9s the next night, grabbing 5 rebounds one night, and then disappearing the next night, making bad turnovers. That's exactly what would be happening. And that's my whole point of this situation, Mark, is that if you take any of these bad players on our team and sub them out on these other bad teams, they'd be putting up numbers. I remember, Mark, you're old school. Mitch, you're too young. When we traded away Charles Barkley, who did we get back? Something Malone. Jeff Malone, not Karl Malone, some other Malone. And he put up like 17, 18 points a game for the Sixers that first year. And I was like, oh, we got this great guy. No, we were a bad team. Somebody's going to get the points. Tony Roten, during the process era, put up 18 points a game. What was it? There was an Anderson during that time too. James Anderson or something. Put up big numbers sometimes. People put up numbers on bad teams all the time. Yeah, Dario should have gotten Rookie of the Year. He hurt. Was it Joel's or Ben? It was Joel's year too, and stole some of his votes. I was a big Dario fan, man. I love that kid. I did, and it's a shame. There's a lot of guys during that era that have had success on good teams. Dario, one of them. Landry Shamet at times has. Christian Wood last night, we saw what he's turned himself into with the Mavericks. Rashawn Holmes had a stretch where he was playing well. Jeremiah Grant is the main one that was here during the process era that turned into a damn good player elsewhere. Obviously, I think he is Jeremy Grant under a max contract right now in Portland. I don't know if he got a full max or close to a max. But Dario is one that I really thought I was sort of wrong on Dario and really wrong on Joel Okafor. I thought Jahlil Okafor was going to be the real deal. I really did. I thought he was going to be an elite offensive big man in the NBA. Boy, was I wrong there. And then I thought Dario Saric was going to be a regular contributing starter on an NBA team, playing 25 to 30 minutes a night, averaging 9 points, 8 rebounds, whatever it may be. Kind of similar to like what Josh Hart's doing, whatever team he's playing on right now, because he's played on so many different teams. I've been wanting Josh Hart. Josh Hart is the kind of player we need on this Sixers team. And I've been asking for the Sixers to try to find a way to trade for him, and he keeps moving teams, and yet we can't find a way to get him here. It was close to the max Jeremy. I thought it was pretty close. And yeah, I think Okafor, I think Embiid maybe is the wrong era too to an extent. Big men just don't dominate. You need wings. You need athletic wings. It's an athletic game. You need 6'8", 6'9", guys that can run, dunk, shoot, play defense when they feel like playing defense. The big man just is not the way the NBA. It's just a different basketball game. Okafor, put him in the mid-90s. Mitch, I don't know how old you are. I've seen your shows. I can't tell how old you are. But, growing up, in my teenage years in the mid-90s, would have been, Okafor would have dominated on, say, like the 95 Sixers or something like that. They never really looked in the buyout market. Right. They did. They rushed. They overreacted. Brought in Dwayne Dedman, and the guy can't see the floor. But also, let's be realistic. Everybody freaking out at the buyout market mistakes. You got to realize, the buyout market does not affect your playoff run directly. Indirectly, it does, because if you buyout market right, you could get Joel a break in the regular season easier. You could get James Harden a night off easier if you bring in the right guys to the buyout market. But when you shrink your rotation, when you should shrink your rotation, because we know Doc Rivers doesn't shrink his rotation ever, even in the playoffs, these guys shouldn't be seeing the floor. I don't think you could tell me a guy that was ever brought to a team during the buyout market that helped their team, really, really helped their team win a title. Oh my God. Seriously. Why would you even say that on my show? Get out of here. We got to keep bringing up all these bad moves. This is the problem, Mitch. For as much as I want to crush Doc Rivers, as much as I want to crush this team, it's the front office, whether it's Daryl Morey, whether it's Elton Brand, whoever's making decisions over the last 5 years, there have been countless mistakes made on building this roster. We waited too long. I found the tweet. I didn't share it on Twitter. I was saving it for today. I found a tweet of me. Oh, let me see if I can find it here in my messages here. Hold on. Where is it? I put out a tweet on October 28th, 2020. If Daryl Morey trades away Ben Simmons or Joel without giving Doc Rivers a full season with them, it'll be the biggest mistake in franchise history. Morey's track record is big trades. They haven't netted a title yet. Be careful what you wish for. Well, again, I was wrong. They should have moved on and split those guys up a lot sooner. Should have been able to realize what was coming with the Ben Simmons drama sooner. Man, I think I was on Scotty Talks before DSM even existed. And I even hinted that maybe Ben Simmons was even better player than Joel Embiid, or was going to become. Boy, I was wrong. But this front office has made so many bad decisions. The Mikal Bridges one, it doesn't get talked about enough. Could you imagine if we would not have traded Mikal Bridges for Zaire Smith? Or yeah, whatever it was. Could you imagine what this team would look like with Mikal Bridges? Smith never saw the court. Yeah, he got sick and whatnot, but I don't think he's seen the court anywhere else right now. Is he even in the G League now at this point? I don't know. But if he's playing on San Antonio, he's probably putting up minutes. I'm surprised people aren't saying, well, we should have kept him. But no, if you would have kept Mikal Bridges on this team, can you imagine him? Might have him starting over PJ Tucker right now. Yeah, his mom worked in the front office. That was heartbreaking. She was crying. She was so happy her son got drafted to the hometown team. And then, like, 10 minutes later, yo, get out of here. Going to Phoenix. Lucky him. Phoenix is a nice town anyway. It's a great city, great state. Hot, but, better than Philly weather-wise. Now he's elsewhere, whatever. And look, the mistakes. It's not the specific player, but it's the constant mistakes. Look, I keep waiting. I keep hearing that PJ Tucker, we're going to see PJ Tucker in the playoffs and what he brings to the team. We talk about Daniel House, the bad mistakes on bringing him in, or some of these other guys, Montrezl Harrell, or who was the other guy? We cut him in spring training camp that he signed. He's in Brooklyn now. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a terrible place to be now. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to be playing for Brooklyn now. God. We think we got it bad here. Just imagine being in Brooklyn. Your core is Mikal Bridges and maybe Ben Simmons. Brutal in Brooklyn right now. My sister-in-law lives up there, right by the center, the Barclays Center. Brutal up there in that city. But these mistakes, PJ Tucker, all the other mistakes that we made this offseason. Everybody says PJ Tucker will see his effects on this team come playoffs. Well, what we've seen this year from PJ Tucker, giving a 37-year guy 3 years, whatever it was, $40 million. Is he really going to flip a switch and be that much better than he is right now come playoff time? Some games he's good, effective on defense, knocks down a couple shots. And then other games he's the worst player on the team. Is he really going to be that much better? That it's going to make that much of a difference come playoff time? I don't think so. He had a good run for the Suns, and he's most likely the best player. Yeah, absolutely. 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 Look, again, I wasn't trying to make this about a bash of Sixers. I'm not trying to overreact. Look, I never even got to some of my old tweets that I went from last night, some of the responses. Let me pull this up here. We might have to hold off Eagles talk to another day. Free agency doesn't start till March 15th. So let's bring up some of these comments that I had put on, or somebody put on Twitter here. Let me see. I got a comment here from somebody. My man Joe, and I love Joe. Joe Stevenson, he responds and interacts with me on Twitter all the time. But here are some of his comments on my Twitter feed last night. Maybe a different coach would have fixed this or at least developed players. But as great of a skilled player Embiid is, no one wants to play with him. He selfish whines about not being MVP and gets outplayed by Doncic last night. He doesn't play games enough and is selfish. This is what the Sixers have done to their fan base. Joel Embiid isn't a selfish player. He doesn't whine about not being MVP. He misses some games, but not as much as you got it. You got to maintenance these guys when you're 7'2", 285. I'm not overreacting because it's true. What that comment that I just read off is true. He's not a selfish player, Embiid. He doesn't whine. He goes on to say, what does he want? How many games does he take off? Do you hear any other superstar whining about MVP? It's literally comment like that. Yeah, Mark, it's way off base. But it's also the frustrations and the instant overreactions to games like last night. And the fact that they just keep happening. And this is not year one of freaking out about this Sixers team. This is year 3, 4, 5 of where this Sixers team is. Yeah, He said nobody. He also goes on to say that no star would want to come and play with Joel Embiid. James Harden wanted to come and play with Joel Embiid. People want to play with Joel Embiid. It's the overreaction that's happening on social media because of the frustration. Look, and I know Mark said this on one of my shows once before, that when the Phillies are good, the city and the town, the fan base dominates. Well, when the Sixers get on a run, it dominates too. This city gets passionate about basketball. But when the same story, again, and again, and again, and again keeps happening, the fan base gets tired and frustrated. And I'll go back to Jason Ashworth's comment, but hold on. I'm talking about everything you say. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Butler still wants to. Yeah, Jimmy Butler's been gone for how many years, and he still wants to play. I'm surprised Joel hasn't forced his way to Miami. And if this offseason doesn't start, or if the season doesn't end right, which it probably won't, and he does not get his say in the initial moves made this offseason, I would not be surprised if Joel starts to inch his way to Miami or somewhere else. It's very possible. There are some closet hoops heads out there. Again, yeah. But as Jason Ashworth's tweet said that I brought up at the beginning of the show, Mark, if you missed it, that are you even fully committed to watching every Sixers game? Because this story has been read and written time and time again. It has. Yeah, I mean, I would be mad, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be disappointed. Look, Mitch, you don't watch every show. I still got my Jimmy Butler jersey right there because I hope he comes back someday. Even if he's 42, I want him back. I want to be able to rock it one more day without being called out for it. If Butler was here, then Ben would have maybe. If Jimmy was still here, Ben wouldn't have stayed. Joel does deserve it. See, very rare. I don't believe in the phrase a player deserves a title. Well, you got to earn the title. And very rarely do I feel like a player has done everything they can to help a franchise win, but the franchise hasn't helped them. And Joel Embiid falls into that category of one of those players that just pours every ounce of energy. Allen Iverson. Someone mentioned Allen Iverson earlier in this show. Drew, I think you did. AI deserved the title. Joel Embiid deserves it. Very few players in all of sports. Very few of them. It's a good thing you had the E at the on the end of the misspelled word, Mitch. If you misspelled it without the E, then we would have had a problem. Joel is very happy and comfortable here, yes, but Joel wants a title. That's the thing. Joel, like this year, I talked about at the beginning of the season, before we even started the season. This was the season of legacies. Daryl Morey's legacy, never won a title. Never got to the finals even. James Harden, never won a title. Never got to the finals. Joel Embiid, 28. Joel Embiid's not going to be playing until he's 37 years old. He's got a small window to win a title. They want that title. Joel Embiid has played hurt so many times. He's playing hurt right now. Yeah, Jimmy Butler made Ben uncomfortable because Jimmy Butler wants to win a title. Jimmy Butler falls into that category of players that deserve a title. Well, Jimmy Butler won the one title, didn't he, in Miami? Or did they lose in the finals? I don't know. I'm too fired up to remember details right now. People deserve that. I don't believe every player out there deserves a title in any major sport. But there are a few that, despite every ounce of effort that they put forth and on the court, deserve a title. Because you can only it's not like baseball, a very individualistic sport. Basketball is a very, very team and organization sport. It don't matter how great a player is. If the organization puts a bad team around you, you can't win a title. They lost to the Lakers. Drew, I'm too fired up this morning. I wanted to spend 30 minutes talking Eagles. And we're 45 minutes into a 60-minute show. This is one of those days I wish I didn't have a pizza shop. Which, if you guys are bored, today, 15-year anniversary of my pizza shop, Fox's Pizza in Kennett Square. 15 years ago to the day I made my first pizza. To my man Isidro, my first customer. I still remember him. Owns a Mexican restaurant in Kennett. 15 years in business. I got to get in there today. And I'm too fired up. But this is a day I could have gone on for 2 hours. This show could go on for 2 hours. I could talk Eagles. We could probably talk Sixers for another hour here even. But very few players deserve titles. And what else, people that are in my comments section on Twitter, saying things about Joel Embiid and calling him out. I mean, I don't know what else he needs to do. I'm a Philly Sisyphus. Jay Fox. This team is where they are because of poor management, coach and GM. There's no way to disagree with that. The coach and GM of this team. But more importantly, like I said, Doc Rivers has made his mistakes and has his flaws as a coach. Might be an overrated coach. But Daryl Morey, what's Daryl Morey giving him? Compare last year's roster to this year. His big moves, P.J. Tucker and Daniel House. Now, he was limited to the moves he could make, but that was his fault from the year before and the year before. And this team is still, look, I am a huge Tobias Harris fan. Everybody knows that. I love Tobias. I love the little things and the things part of this team, the leadership he brings. But the offseason of letting Jimmy Butler walk, giving Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris max contracts will live on and haunt this team for decades. Because if we do not win a title with Joel Embiid in Philadelphia, it is going to be, even if you let Jimmy Butler walk because you're keeping Ben Simmons, committing a max contract to Ben Simmons then, and committing a max contract to Tobias Harris, set this franchise back. Now, I didn't see it then. I was okay with it. Like, I was upset that Jimmy Butler left, but I still had enough faith in Ben Simmons at that point, and I was then and still am such a Tobias Harris fan that I didn't see it then. But I'm willing to admit my mistake and see it now. These are people out there that love to, I know. Dude, I started to get into it with one of them on Twitter yesterday. Then I realized I can never win an argument with that person because he just never stops. It's everybody else's fault but Doc Rivers, according to this one guy out there. And Mitch, I'm sure you've run into him before too. Won't say his name live because I like the guy. He's a good guy. But his blindness to Doc Rivers is legendary. You hit me up in private DM, Mitch, and we'll see if we're talking about the same person there. But it'll haunt this team, the mistakes that were made that offseason, letting Jimmy go. If they would have, even if you keep Butler and Tobias and you find a way to keep Jimmy Butler, and you keep J.J. Redick that year, if you just run that team back, I still to this moment believe, even with Brett Brown as the coach, we win the title the next year. A full year. Very rarely do superstar trades happen mid-season, and then you win the title that year. It normally takes a full year, full offseason to gel them together. It doesn't just instantly happen. Yeah, I think we're probably talking about the same exact guy, Mitch, mentally. I don't like calling people out by name when I really want to trash them. So we'll just leave that be. But, man, this is what this Sixers team has done, guys. The Sixers team has caused this city to just fall apart. And like I said, I'm still stuck on it. I said it once, now I can't get it out of my head. The mistakes of that year, offseason, can we say that was when? All right, so let me backtrack for a second. To me, the process wasn't about winning the title. The process was about acquiring assets to acquire stars. And that's when the process would end. Now, I say the process ended when we got James Harden, but really the process ended when we got Jimmy Butler. We had the assets to get him and Tobias. We got him, and then it backfired. That was the end of the process, and everything dove off a cliff after that moment. There really isn't a moment since then that I felt super confident about this team. We dragged on the Ben Simmons drama way too long. I can find tweets saying it, that it's going to in last year that we should have traded him before the season. And Daryl Morey's fascination with only wanting to trade Ben Simmons for James Harden. He feels like he can't win without James Harden. But yet he hasn't won anything with James Harden. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have traded for James Harden. I still say even if we don't win a title, we won that James Harden trade for Ben Simmons. But there were rumors of other deals that were out there. I presented some rumors that I'd heard, some guys from Toronto, wing players, compliment what we had a little bit better. There was rumors that, Tyler Halliburton and either Buddy Hield got traded with him for Sabonis to the Pacers, but it could also have been Harrison Barnes with some of the rumors with Halliburton. Would we be a better team right now if we had those young pieces surrounding Joel and Tyrese Maxey better? Would a Halliburton Maxey backcourt be better than Harden and Maxey? Because you'd also have another piece in Hield or Harrison Barnes start. Could you imagine if we had Halliburton and Barnes instead of Harden and Tucker? There were a lot of good trades out there. I proposed a bunch, and there are a lot of rumors floating around there. I'm focused in on the Sacramento one, but there were a lot of options for the Sixers. But Daryl Morey he had those things that they put on horses so they can't see, the little blinders. He was so focused on one thing. I got to get James Harden to Philly. And here we are. And it's not a knock on James Harden. It's not. But the laser focus on just James Harden, what you had to give up and the time wasted, and the rest of the team suffered. Because, you're top heavy. You've got James Harden and Joel Embiid, possibly one of the best 5 duos in the NBA. But then, because of that, you're stuck with Daniel House, PJ Tucker, Paul Reed, Montrezl Harrell, Furkan Korkmaz, Dwayne Dedman. The list goes on and on. And that's the problem. You made the mistake of letting Jimmy Butler walk. You spent 2 years trying to fix that mistake. You get James Harden here. And you're stuck. Super top heavy. Super, super top heavy. And that's why we're in this situation that we're in right now. Basically, the Philadelphia Rockets, or you pick your name. Let's see. Philadelphia Rockets, Houston 70. I think the Philadelphia Rockets has a better ring to it than the Houston 76ers. I think the Philadelphia Rockets sounds better. And look, Mitch, I've been saying this since the day Daryl Morey was announced as the new president, de facto GM of Philadelphia. I said it was a bad move then. And then there was that picture after, him and Doc Rivers sitting at a table with a laptop, like they're scheming on how they're going to bring the Sixers to the glory land. I remember seeing that picture, and I wish I could find the tweet that I made, and I'm going to dig for it. I said, this is not it. And I got bashed for questioning the front office's decision to put the keys to the Ferrari being Joel Embiid, in Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers' hands. Yes, Doc Rivers won a title with one of the first big threes in Boston. He won one title. He was in L.A. for 5 years, 6 years with stars. What did he ever win with the Clippers? I said it his first year in Philly. He looked disinterested. I don't care. Lazy. Like he was more focused on wanting to get on the golf course than play coach basketball. Do you realize, guys, that Doc Rivers went from high school to playing basketball to college playing basketball, right to the NBA playing basketball, and the day he retired, he went right into coaching. Doc Rivers hasn't had a day or a year off to recharge the batteries since he picked up a basketball. There's something to that. I wouldn't be surprised if Doc Rivers, if he got fired, just say after the season, we moved on, he'll take a year or two off. Then if he's kind of getting up there in age, so I don't know if he would. But then in a year or two, if he came back, I wouldn't be surprised if he was a better coach. Because guy needs to recharge his batteries. And that maybe makes him grumpy, makes him make some bad decisions, maybe. But still, putting the keys to the Ferrari in the hands of Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey are why we're here. Why you got people questioning Joel Embiid, saying he's an awful player, an awful teammate. Let's get him out of here. Dude, I guarantee that this offseason, there are going to be so many trade Joel Embiid tweets and comments and shows. Hell, we might even have a show about it here. I don't know. I don't know why you'd want to trade Joel Embiid, but that's what this team has done. It's backfired so badly. The city is ready to just blow it up and move on. Because, again, it's not like one of those books that we used to read when we were kids where you read the page, it says, all right, well, if you want this to happen, turn to page 37. But if you want this to happen, turn to page 21. That's not what the story is for the Sixers. The book just keeps going, and it just has the same ending, no matter what page you go to. I agree. Hate's a strong word. Strongly dislike. I don't like to use the word hate, Mitch. But strongly dislike, absolutely. And this is the problem. But the problem, Mitch, is if you have to reboot, and you weren't tuning in yesterday, Mitch, I hinted at that this offseason, if it blows up, there's a scenario where you can open up 2 max slots for the Sixers team. Just re-surround Joel Embiid. Trade James to Houston, sign and trade, get some assets back, trade those assets for a star player from another team, and you could trade, Tobias Harris's expiring contract, because next year will be his last year on the deal. That's opening up 2 slots. But that's going to take 2 years to reboot and refresh this franchise. Joel Embiid's 28, 29 now. Are you really going to take 2 more years of Joel Embiid's time to refresh this franchise? Then he's 31. Who knows what kind of shape his body's in at that point? So I'm not saying I want to trade Joel Embiid, but I don't know what other options to refresh around him are. At this point, can you really run it back with James Harden, Joel Embiid next year? And if Daryl Morey isn't let go at the end of this year, which he probably should be, no matter what the results, he should probably, unless we win a title, Daryl Morey should probably be let go and somebody else should be put in charge. Poor Elton Brand. I mean, he made the mistake, the Jimmy Butler mistake. But he's literally the GM coffee runner. He makes no decisions in this team. You got to blow the front office up. Otherwise, if you don't, Daryl Morey, if he's left in charge, would be, and this is insane, and this is the problem with this team, Daryl Morey would be more likely to trade Joel Embiid and build around James Harden than trade James Harden and rebuild around Joel Embiid. That's how much I think James Harden and Daryl Morey are tied at the hip. I really, truly believe that. And it's a mistake. I don't think you cut Morey loose. I think you do. I would rather cut Morey loose than Doc Rivers at this point. At least Doc Rivers has won 1 NBA title. Daryl Morey hasn't won jack. Josh Harris, yeah, I mean, you can't really force, I guess you could kind of sort of force an owner out of town. But, we see what's going on with the Flyers. You can't really force ownership changes unless you find some dirty pictures or some old racist tweets somewhere. You really can't force an ownership group out. I said it from the beginning. Josh Harris, you can never trust an owner that owns 2 sports franchises in different cities. Because he owns the Devils, I believe it is. Or is it the Islanders? I think it's the Devils and the Sixers. 2 rival cities. He owns teams in both cities. Can't trust a guy like that. That means he just cares about one thing, and that's money. But you cut Morey loose, even before Doc Rivers. You cut Morey loose. Honestly, the ideal offseason would be you cut both. You find a way to keep Harden and Embiid, and you get some fresh blood in here to revamp this roster. You make drastic changes everywhere else if you have to. Yeah, but is he trying to buy the commies? I wouldn't be surprised. That would be just such a kick in the ass. He owns the Sixers, the Devils, and the commies. Is he a commie? I don't know. I hate the name the commies. I do. Look, guys, I don't know what else to say. Look, I didn't think we would go on this long on the Sixers. I appreciate everybody, Drew, Mitch, Mark, everybody else that's chimed in throughout this show. This team is in a dark spot. But they're still a really good team, and that's the problem. They are going to hold on. I was looking at the standings before the show. They are the 3 seed. They are going to stay in the 3 seed. What's up, Joe? How you doing? It is a happy Friday. 15-year anniversary at the pizza shop today. It'll be a busy day. I'll be live on the Fox's Pizza Facebook page later, celebrating 15 years. But where was I going? I lost my train of thought. This team is good. Yeah, they're the 3 seed. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to have a home playoff series in the first round. We've got one more really tough game against Milwaukee on Saturday. But then we got an easier stretch of games. So things are going to turn around. Everybody's going to be in love with the Sixers team again. So we got to take each day as it is. Yeah. He loves Houston. We know that. So what? He is not. Let me tell you something, Joe. These Harden rumors, and I'm trying to wrap this show up here. I got to get to work. But these Harden to Houston rumors, unless he wins a title here, he is not going to demand to go back to Houston. He knows he ain't winning a title in Houston next year. James Harden wants an NBA title. James Harden is one of the 100 greatest players of all time. But if he had a title, he'd be one of the 50 greatest players of all time. Maybe top 30 players of all time. He wants that title. He ain't going to demand. If he demands out of Philly after the season, it's going to be to go to another title contender. I think he wanted to go to Miami at one point. That's what's going to happen with him. He ain't demanding out of Philly to go to Houston. Trust me. Dude, you got to go back and watch the whole show, Joe. You got to go start from the beginning. I went into all this. Dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. It was actually a great show, guys. This has been one of my more enjoyable shows lately. I appreciate everybody tuning in, but I can't talk any more Sixers right now. I got my throat hurts. I haven't even gotten through half. My coffee cup is still half full. Half full. I don't really go through a cup of coffee and a glass of water a show. I went through half a cup of coffee. I got you, my man. I appreciate you, Joe. Everybody have a great day. Make sure you like and subscribe to the DSM Media YouTube page. I'd really greatly appreciate that. Tune in every day, 8:30 a.m. We got so much. I can't believe I didn't touch on the Eagles one bit. And I'm sure Monday's show will be talking Sixers again because they play the Bucks on Saturday. But make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications on the DSM Media YouTube page. I'd greatly appreciate it. Everybody have a great Friday. Hey, if you're in the Kennett Square region, come say hello. We'll be there. It's 15th anniversary of Fox's Pizza. Everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you on Monday, 8:30 a.m. Trending in the AM is out, man. Everybody have a great weekend.